Questions continue to swirl about how much intelligence the Chinese balloon was able to collect in its journey across the U.S. as Republicans slam the president for not shooting it down when it crossed into U.S. airspace in Idaho.
Clearly, this was an attempt by China to gather information to defeat our command and control of our sensitive missile defense and nuclear weapon sites. And that certainly is an urgency that this administration does not recognize.
Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jim Hines. He is the top Democratic member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us. What say you to the Pentagon's defense that we collected a lot of intelligence on what they were doing and that they did not get as much in crossing the country as they can get from any of their satellites, which are constantly up there?
Well, Andrea, the question is, I'll know the answer to that question this week when we actually get briefed on the decision-making process about when and how to take down the balloon. There's an awful lot of people like me coming to absolutely rock-solid conclusions based on very few facts. You know, the president was given military advice about not shooting this down over the continental United States. That obviously has a safety factor, but it also, and this is perhaps a little bit underexplained in the media in particular, there's immense intelligence value in watching an asset like this actually behave. What are its maneuverability, its collection, its emission characteristics? There's a huge amount of value to be gained by that. And then, of course, recovering it hopefully more or less intact. So none of us really know what the decision-making process was or what the decision-making process may have been when apparently these balloons strayed over the continental United States in the previous administration. But I do expect that this week we'll be briefed.
Well, what I've been told by senior officials is that the previous administration was not aware of it, that it was only after the fact that current administration officials, analysts, obviously, and intelligence went back, did the forensics, and then saw that there had been previous incursions, but that they were very brief. The kind of probes that Russian fighter jets do on our west coast or around our borders to the north, and you know, not anything like coming back from Canada into Idaho, over Montana, and then going southeast across the entire rest of the country.
Yeah, look, there's no question that what the Chinese have done here was an incredibly brazen act. That's not in dispute here. And again, we'll find out what sorts of intelligence we gathered from both the observation of it in action as well as whatever we can recover off the coast of South Carolina. So the story remains to be told here. I would also point out that, you know, people are asking whether this radically changes our relationship with China. You know, maybe I take this for granted operating in the intelligence world as I do. You know, the reality is that the United States and China are both spending immense resources trying to steal each other's secrets, trying to surveil each other. No surprise there. What is pretty unusual here is the brazenness of actually flying an aircraft over the continental United States. We need to understand whether that was a mistake, whether it was deliberate. If so, why was it deliberate? And there's still a lot to be learned.
What do we know about what kind of intelligence gathering it was actually doing? Is it possible that it was doing some high new technology? In, you know, whether it's drones or some other form of surveillance that we're not even aware of until we've
it's always of course that's possible. And again, I would caution viewers of any show that I'm not sure that really anybody in this building has been briefed on exactly what was found. But of course, it's always possible that there was novel technology. Look, we understand this technology pretty well also, but you know, there are, so I could give you some speculative reasons for why you might want a balloon, right? Both nations have satellites. Satellites are often moving very, very quickly. A balloon gives you an opportunity to hover over a location for a bit of time, and a lot less far away from a target than a satellite is. So there's a logic to this. We'll know more this week about what its capabilities were, which is why we're really happy to have recovered this thing, and hopefully get some sense for, you know, was this a mistake or was this a deliberate provocation by China?
Have you figured out what President Xi was up to in that regard, as to whether or not they actually wanted to blow up the meeting with Secretary Blinken?
Well, you know, it's devilishly hard to get at the intentions of a foreign leader. Having recovered this balloon, we may have some sense of whether it was communicating directly with China or with some other Chinese military asset. We may be able to reconstruct some of what went down. Look, my guess is, and this is pure speculation, that this was a mistake. No country ever wants its intelligence collection assets to fall into the hands of an antagonistic country. So my guess is this was a mistake, purely speculative. But hopefully we'll know more in the coming days as we get a chance to really scrutinize this asset.
Was there an advantage to the fact that we did have, I am told, and we've reported, U-2 spy planes circling the balloon as it traversed the United States?
Well, you can be certain that we kept a very close eye on it, and not just an eye, but an ear, and good monitoring of what sorts of transmissions it might have been making, what sorts of radio waves it might have been collecting. So, again, we'll come to a conclusion about whether shooting it down earlier or later made sense. But one thing is undeniable, which is the opportunity to watch one of these things in action, to observe it, to get a sense for its capabilities, is valuable, and I'm sure we collected that information.
And what about the Republican complaint that Congress should have been notified right away, even if you didn't have a full briefing? Congress left town on schedule. The staff was given some information, but frankly, they did not come out with a Pentagon briefing until my colleague at NBC, Courtney Kuby, was about to, report this.
Yeah, no, it's a very good question, and it's a very fair question. Sitting as I do as ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, I never like reading about things in the press or hearing about them on cable news networks. So I think that's a very fair question, and it's one that not just Republicans, but that Democrats like myself will be answering. Really looking at the decision-making process from the moment this balloon was picked up off the West Coast, and what we think of that decision-making process.
Is it similar at all to the fact that on the classified documents, they went from November for months without telling anyone until CBS reported that it had happened? Why don't they get out in front of these things?
Well, I'm not going to speculate, on something I don't know about, which is decision making around those documents inside the president's office. My guess would be that it's a totally different group of people in the Pentagon who were advising the president on notification on this stuff. But it's a really good question. Look, this was not something that was ever going to be secret. You didn't even need a particularly powerful pair of binoculars to see this thing. So, again, very fair question. Why did the administration? What was its thinking, and what was its rationale for informing us when it did? Totally fair question.
Congressman Jim Himes, thanks very much. Thanks for being with us. And stay.